Before we get on to the weekend's action, we should start off by talking about the terribly tragic news which broke on Saturday night. Sol Bamba, the former Cardiff, Leeds, Leicester and Middlesbrough defender, has died at the age of 39. He's been the head coach of Adanaspor in Turkey since July, but fell ill after a match on Friday and passed away yesterday. There's been tributes paid to him from across the world of football. And Justin, this is really, really sad news.
Incredibly sad. I mean, it becomes a bit of a cliche sometimes when you say one of the good guys in football, but honestly, I think every single club that had Sol Bamba associated with them was so incredibly lucky. He was a genuine, passionate footballer and man. He loved his job. He loved the clubs that he played for. He was a leader, fighter, and just an exceptional human being. And yeah, as you say, it's just incredibly sad.
Yeah, I saw the news late on Saturday night and it was a huge shock. Of course, we all knew about his battle with cancer a few years ago and he beat it, and I expected him to go on and live a long, happy life. So this really came out the blue. I mean, I remember it was last year. He was being seriously linked with the Cardiff job and was reportedly very close to getting it. So for this to happen, it's just a massive shock. And the reaction from the board of football says a lot about him, doesn't it? He was well loved at all his former clubs. And I don't just mean as a good player. He was genuinely loved by those clubs as a character. And I watched a few interviews with him where he just seems like such a lovely, cheery bloke. And I actually remember a couple of years ago, now that I think about it, I was watching Derby v Middlesbrough, and who sat down in front of me? None other than Sol Bamba. And I'm not sure if he was still a registered player at the time, but he wasn't in the squad that day. However, he was, writing down notes, really taking the game in. So even when his playing days were just about over, he clearly loved football, wanted to make a career in coaching or management, and that's very sadly been taken away from him. I mean, 39 years old, Justin, it's awful.
And I think the best sort of credit you can give to him is he never came across as a footballer. Just came across as a guy who was just passionate about life, passionate about football, passionate about the sport he played. But he never once felt like he was a touch away from people who weren't playing football. Yeah, as I say, just never came across as a footballer. And that's a testament to him as just being him. And I think that's beautiful. And again, there's that interview, isn't it? After, I think it was when Cardiff were in the Premier League, when he's talking about sort of getting yellow carded. He just doesn't need to be media trained. Didn't need to be media trained. He just loved it. And I think that's the best sort of the best way you can think about him.
Yeah, he was down to earth, wasn't he? You don't get many footballers who are like that nowadays. So it's a real sad loss, and we send our best wishes to his friends and family. Let's get on to some of the weekend's action then, Justin, and we begin with the East Lancashire derby between Burnley and Blackburn, which finished 1-1. Three-word reviews here from Blackburn fans. Matthew says, very, very proud. Rovers Fanzone says, Andy Vyman screamer. Steve says, never offside. A great game, wasn't it? We were saying in Friday's show how it's quite an underrated derby. This one, isn't it, Justin? And this was a great example of why it's such a good derby.
It delivered. It honestly did deliver. Again, I think it's also a reason why you don't put derbies this early on in the season, because I think if this was a few weeks later, we'd have got a lot more sort of ferocity, a lot more quality as well on the pitch. Both of these teams are still finding their feet. But what we saw was exactly what you expect from a derby. Lots of yellow cards, lots of big moments. Obviously, Andy Vyman's goal is a big moment, but also he nearly scored a screamer, beautiful goal after 40 seconds. It was just as good as a derby you can get this early on in the season. It's what we all needed to inject into the veins, and then as we discussed, the international break takes it away.
That bloody international break. Yeah, the atmosphere was electric. Loads of big tackles flying in. Lewis Travis and Hannibal Medri were at each other all afternoon. That was such a good battle. It was truly one for the ages. But loads of drama, loads of talking points. Exactly what we wanted, really, from this kind of game. Justin, talk to me about that Andy Vyman goal, because that was a beauty, wasn't it?
It was beautiful for a number of reasons. Not only was the strike from Vyman just unreal, and by the way, when has Andy Vyman ever done that in his career?
I did have a look, because I can't remember him scoring many goals from outside the box. He has got 8 in his career.
He's 34 years old.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's not something he's very much known for, is it?
No, it isn't. He's an energetic footballer, a great footballer. He's made a great career out of himself, but that's the best goal he's ever going to hit. And as you know, it's the best one he's ever hit as well. But I think the other beautiful side of it was the fact that it's come from a route one, it's come from a knockdown, and it's come from Weimann just lumping it into the corner. Again, the reason why you play Maktar Gay for starters, but also that it was just a testament and a throwback to the Little and Large partnership that we all grew up watching. Apart from these woke kids who have never seen it in their lives.
Those bloody snowflakes wanted to ticky-tacker it around. Yeah, an ode to Route 1. I like that. It was one of the most beautiful things for me was, it just came completely out of nowhere, didn't it? Because Blackburn didn't really have a sniff up until that point, and then that just made the goal all the better. The shock factor of, oh my God, what a goal it was. And it was one of those moments where I'm watching the game by myself at home and I let out a little scream when it goes in. It was beautiful because hitting it that cleanly when it's coming across you, such a difficult thing to do. And then the ball dipped just perfectly under the bar. If it was a few inches higher, it doesn't go in. It's just outrageous. Yeah. And it really changed the game. So just a remarkable moment to equalise, really.
Yeah. Just to throw something in there, almost a carbon copy of Mark Harris's goal against Blackburn last week, by the way, where it's hit up, Matt Phillips knocks it down to Mark Harris just lumps it into the corner, hit up to Maktar Gay, knocks it down to Andy Weimann, just lumps it to the corner.
No, I wouldn't say a carbon copy. They're quite different goals.
It's almost a carbon copy. This is what I mean. The very similar style of goal. Oh, come on.
No, it's a long-distance goal, but I don't think they're carbon copies at all. I completely disagree with that. But, Justin, should Blackburn actually have been winning shortly after that? Because not long afterwards, Tyree Stoulton had a goal disallowed for offside, which simply wasn't offside.
Yeah, it's quite bizarre, this, because I've not seen too much furor from it. I don't think the commentators and Sunrise made too much of a thing of it. But actually, I thought it was actually a really poor decision, a really, really poor decision from the linesman. Because what happens is Lewis Travis plays an incredible pass. I've never seen him play that sort of pass before, but it was a great pass in behind, and Dolan runs onto it. Dolan is very much onside, but Ryan Hedges. There's almost a coming together between Ryan Hedges and I can't remember the centre half. Was it Esteve? I can't remember.
I think it might have been.
But there was a coming together between them, and I think Ryan Hedges was on the line of on the verge of being offside. He was very much level, I think. But the linesman was very convinced that it was offside. Quite a bizarre decision. It was either a free kick, I think, to Blackburn, or a goal. It was quite a disappointing decision. That.
Well, you play advantage, don't you? You don't give a free kick to Blackburn in that situation. And you're right, neither of them were offside. It's a calamitous decision that, considering they're so close to that linesman as well, a professional linesman shouldn't be getting that wrong, in my view. And the thing is, Blackburn defended superbly well for the rest of the game. So there was a great possibility that they would have held on to their first win in this derby in 14 years if this goal was given. So that makes it all the more of a poorer decision. I think the officials as a whole actually had a really poor game, really. I thought Maktar Gay's second yellow was really harsh too. But, there were a few inconsistencies throughout the contest, and the disallowed goal really tops it off as a really bad call. But look, John Eustace says he was proud of his team's performance here, and rightly so, because it means their unbeaten start to the season continues, Justin, and it has been a great start for Rovers, hasn't it? An incredible start.
I don't think you can take anything away from them. They battled really well in this game, and obviously going out to 10 men showcased that. They got into the game and probably had the better chances. I think they carved the better openings, because there wasn't too many chances in this game. But it's a case of trying to sustain their form after the international break. But what they have done is built some very solid foundations, really solid foundations. I think going back to this game, they'd have lost this type of fixture last season, going out to 10 men against a rival.
Under Yondell Thomason as well, they would.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But Eustace has instilled this steely demeanour about them. There's a streetwise aspect to them. They can mix the game up as well. I know they scored a Route 1 goal, but they can play quick counter attacks. There's just a lot more about this Blackburn side than than there was at any point last season. Then probably there was any point under John Yondell Thomason as well. So Eustace has really changed the course of things at Ewood Park, because this side had no identity, and I think they're starting to get it now. Yeah,
well, even when they were down to 10 men for more than half an hour, Ainsley Pears didn't have a save to make. Really, did he? They were just so well organised, and that's what we've come to expect with a team managed by John Eustace. I thought Owen Beck at left back, who was making his Blackburn debut, had an outstanding game, considering he was, of course, coming up against a winger who Burnley rejected 25 million for. Beck pretty much had him in his back pocket throughout the whole game, but the whole back line was great. Lewis Travis in midfield was everywhere. I think the only disappointment really was that they had a great chance to get their first win in 14 years against their big rivals. So that will be a bit of a disappointment. However, I don't think many teams are going to get a point away at Turf Moor this season. So a great result, and Blackburn continue to do a lot better than many people expected them to this season. John Eustace deserves a lot of credit for that. What did you make of this from a Burnley perspective, Peachy?
I don't want to be too harsh. For a couple of reasons. Obviously, the lead up to the game was very disruptive for Burnley because of outgoings and incomings. I thought they started the game really well, but I just thought we saw more of what Scott Parker teams do. They have a lot of the ball, but don't really create anything, and that's the frustrating thing, especially when opposition go down to 10 men and you're at home. Well, if you took control of the ball, you didn't take control of the game. Blackburn still had some decent openings, even down to 10 men, and it's just one of frustration, but I'm not trying to be too harsh, because I think you have to take into account that they have had a very disruptive couple of weeks with transfers. So, yeah, disappointing, I think, because they didn't take control of the game the way they should have.
Yeah, the fact that Burnley didn't even get a shot on target against 10 men who, for more than half an hour, let alone getting the win, is quite concerning. And Scott Parker admitted after the game that he became a bit predictable towards the end. Unfortunately, that is a common symptom of Scott Parker balls. So don't be surprised if it happens again when they face a side who is happy to get a point, which they inevitably will do on many occasions this season. In fairness, they were excellent in that first 20 minutes, and I was worried at that stage it was going to be a long afternoon for Blackburn. However, we have got to remember, as you say, Burnley's preparation has been fairly nightmarish, hasn't it? And then, on deadline day, they were facing the prospect of losing potentially more than half a dozen players. In the end, they only lost Wout Weghorst, Zeki Amdouni, Vitinho, Luke McNally in the final couple of days of the window. So really, not that bad, actually, Justin.
It went pretty well, I think. I think they've recruited fairly smartly as well. I think it's quite easy to forget some of the transfers they brought in, like Joe Worrell, for example. I think Jaden Anthony is a smart capture, especially if Scott Parker can tap into the same Anthony that played under Parker at Bournemouth. But as I say, I think it went as well as it could have. I think they're probably weaker now than they did start the season, than they were at the start of the season, but they have lost a lot of quality. But that being said, I think that quality has been replaced by good players who have room to grow as well. So, yeah, it's not a terrible window. It's not amazing either, but it could have gone a lot worse.
Yeah, well, two players have come in as well. Josh Laron from Stoke, who played against Blackburn, and Zian Fleming from Millwall. I find the Fleming move very interesting because, first of all, he was strongly linked with a move to Burnley a year ago when they just got promoted to the Premier League. And it's quite funny because, of course, Burnley had a stinker in the Premier League and Fleming didn't have a great season at Millwall last season. So it might have been best for all parties if that move did happen. But look, he could be an excellent signing. We talk about games where Burnley struggle to break down teams. Fleming is more than capable of the odd thunder bastard from distance. So he could be a real difference maker for Burnley if he rediscovers that form from a couple of seasons ago. But we'll wait and see with that one. Let's go to the team who continue to be the pace setters in the division. It's Sunderland. They've continued their winning start to the season away at Portsmouth. 3-1 it finished. 3-word reviews here from Sunderland fans. Ralph on our Patreon says, Rig is elite. Rob says, something is happening. And Chris says, taking the briss. I thought, Justin, this might be a tricky game for Sunderland because, look, Portsmouth have had a solid start to the season. They've looked very competitive despite playing some very difficult teams. But this really wasn't a tricky game at all for Sunderland, was it? They have absolutely cruised this again.
this was as straightforward as you probably could have got, especially away from home as well. This really was a dominant performance. If you just look at the chance creation, Sunderland were on it. Portsmouth, I wouldn't say didn't really stand a chance, but they were blown over very, very quickly. Very, very quickly. And yeah, these boys are cooking. These boys are cooking. So many good performances from young. Am I allowed to say that phrase, by the way? It feels like a very Gen Z phrase. I feel like I might be too old for it. But then again...
cooking.
But then again, the Sunderland team is young, so I think it's very apt for me to go, yeah, these boys are cooking. They are cooking like I've never seen anyone cook before.
Don't let your age get in the way of being down with the kids, Justin.
I have to be down with the kids because this squad is full of them, and they are just blowing everybody out of the water. There you go. Good link up there.
Yeah. If they carry on, Justin, they're probably going to be having a brat summer, aren't they? And Riz and other things. I mean, it's got to be said, they were massively helped, Sunderland, by the first goal being a very comical own goal from Portsmouth, where the defender has kicked it against his teammate and then it's rolled over the line slowly. It was so good. But that was the only moment where Sunderland were fortunate, really, because otherwise they completely deserved this win. They possibly could have scored more. And they also conceded their first goal of the season here, but even that came from a lapse from Luke O'Nien, who scored an own goal. On the whole, this was another very impressive showing from this young Sunderland side, who have plenty of Riz, Justin. I don't know what Riz is, so I assume I've used that right. But look, we are only 4 games into the season, and they're top of the table. They've got a 2-point cushion on second already. The international break probably coming at a bad time for them. So with that being said, can you see this continuing afterwards, Justin?
I'm not going to diminish their start. They are a young team. Let's be honest. Let's be a little bit realist about it. They're a young side. I would expect some inconsistency to set in at some point. We've not had the Saturday, Tuesday aspect of the season yet. It's been Saturday, so it's been quite nice. I know they've had League Cup games, but at the same time, you have the opportunity to rest players there. So momentum can take bumps in the road. And like I said, it's a very young team, but the way they are defending, I think, we can really, really get excited about their attack. But I think the big sell for this team is how they're defending, and that's something to be admired. They're shutting teams out. They're not conceding chances. And those foundations are so strong, so strong. It just seems like a feel-good atmosphere as well. You mentioned Luke O'Nien scoring the own goal. He proudly claimed it on social media before apologising to Anthony Patterson for costing the team another clean sheet. But that's just how it's going in a minute. Everybody's on the same boat. Everybody's chipping in together, and the squad seems nicely balanced as well. So, a lot of positives. Not going to get too carried away, but they're an exciting team.
I'm willing to let myself get slightly carried away, Justin. I'm not. I don't think they're going to keep winning every game like they are at the moment. But I will point out their first game back after the break is Plymouth, and with no disrespect intended, they haven't been the team that's impressed me the most so far, which is certainly one way of putting it. But look, it's not like these 4 wins have been grinded out kind of wins. They have been comfortably the much better side in each game.
Yeah,
it's an astonishing start to the season considering how flat the last one ended. And it's a new manager who's never managed in this country before. Joint top scorers in the league, 1 goal conceded, and that was an own goal. And to top it all off, it's the youngest team in the league. And yes, there's even more. They sold their best player 2 games ago and seem completely unaffected by it, don't they? There's just so much to take in, Justin, as to why this start has been so amazing for Sunderland.
Yeah. Jack Clark, who?
Yeah.
Completely forgot about him already. Yeah, completely forgot about him already. Mind you, might get to October and on a 4-game losing streak and we're thinking they need a bit of Jack Clark. But we'll get there when we get there, shall we? But honestly, you've nailed everything there. I know it's quite easy to get carried away, but when you've got a team that's assembled as they are, young players, mix of experience in places, it's just great. And obviously you add in the Reggie Labrie. Completely forgot how we're pronouncing him already, but
Briss.
you get the point. He's as you say, he's a manager who's come in from another league, who's got no experience with the Championship, and he's completely ripping up the rule book that is set by the likes of Paul Mersons and whatnot. So it's really, really something to be admired, and you just cannot. You have to say positive things about them.
Yeah. If you're forgetting how to pronounce it, Justin, think Reggie's taking Libris. You know,
he's taking the Libris. Taking the Libris.
That's a good way to remember it. I think so. I think another thing that's got to be said, Justin, is how this team has been assembled. Because, you know, Dan Neil didn't play against Portsmouth, but him, Anthony Patterson, and Chris Rigg, all academy lads. I mean, it says a lot when I saw multiple Portsmouth fans praising Chris Rigg out, and when a 17-year-old is doing that, you know he's a ridiculous talent. But then you've also got the two fullbacks, Trey Hume, Dennis Sirkin. They cost 150 grand and 250 grand. They're two of the best fullbacks in the league right now, without a doubt. And Patrick Roberts, Alan Brown, free signings. 19-year-old Eliza Mayenda has got 2 goals and 2 assists in 4 games. He was signed for £1 million. 21-year-old Romain Mundle cost £1.5 million and has seamlessly replaced Jack Clark so far. He got a Well, he's just been on fire so far, hasn't he? And look, he got a fair bit of stick last season after the whole Mick Beale debacle, but the sporting director, Christian Speakman, deserves so much praise for what he's built here. And it's really starting to show, isn't it? This is a fine example of what can happen when you've got a plan and everything just starts to come together.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's no question that Christian Speakman got a lot of things wrong last season. The team got a lot of things wrong last season. The managerial appointments, etc. We don't need to go back over it again. But how they've handled recruitment, I think, has been very positive. Don't get me wrong. There have been some poor signings. There have been some inactivity where they've needed to be active, like replacing a Ross Stewart. But you know, you've only got to look at how much certain teams have paid for strikers and how hard it is to replace a proven Championship goal scorer in inverted commas. So it's a difficult thing. But what he has done is assemble a young side. The quality of the youth academy as well. I mean, it precedes Christian Speakman, but players are getting chances in the first team and have been getting chances in the first team over the past 3 or 4 years. The club is just very well set up. It's very well run off the field. They will make mistakes, and they will get criticism when they make mistakes. But when things are going well, you have to praise them because that's down to structure, that's down to strategy, and it's down to planning. Double thumbs up if you are a club aspiring to be well run.
Yeah, I'm also giving them a thumbs up, Justin, as well. I will give them several thumbs up if I could. Let's go to the game on Friday night. Luton suffered another defeat at home to QPR. They threw away a 1-goal lead to lose 2-1. 3-word reviews here from QPR fans. Lee says superb, top class. Jamie says extreme, total magnificence. For Luton, Ben on our Patreon says should have invested more. Another frustrating night for Rob Edwards' side, Justin.
Yeah, really frustrating. I mean, just watching it, I was frustrated. I was visibly frustrated as well because the quality of the goals they conceded were really poor. They were quite sort of not disruptive, but their pattern of play wasn't quite there. They lack energy at times as well, and they're not being clinical. They're not being clinical in either box, and it's so frustrating to see that. They create some good chances, and even right before QPR equalise, Elijah Adebayo has a great chance to make it 2-0 and probably kill the game. There's just a lack of sense of management, in-game management, that is completely missing from this team, and that's why the starts has been as poor as it is. It's all right saying, well, you know, they're creating chances, it will come good at some point. Unfortunately, if you're not putting those chances away, there's no point looking for the silver lining. You've got to put chances away. You've got to start winning games. There is expectation now. You have to rise to it, and they haven't yet.
Well, I did say last week Luton have been unlucky so far, and that was the case, but here it would be difficult to say they were much the better side. On the balance of play, it was fairly even, and if you're a promotion-chasing team at home, that shouldn't be the case where, you know, it's a fairly even game against a side who are, mid-table. Luton need to be controlling games more, considering the amount of talent they've got, and they simply aren't. It seems a bit mad to me that a team with this much talent in it is relying so much on just crossing it again and again and again into Adebayo and Morris. I can understand why they were doing that when they're in the Premier League, but they weren't playing like this when they got promoted from the Championship. And it feels like they haven't adjusted coming back down a level. Do you see what I mean, Justin? It's quite an adjustment mentally and tactically going from a team winning most weeks to losing most weeks in the Premier League. And then it's the same when you come back down as well. You've got to adjust things to try and cope with that. And look, Rob Edwards needs to figure it out quickly. Otherwise, not only will Luton's promotion hopes be in trouble, it wouldn't surprise me if he's in a bit of trouble as well, Justin.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's well liked, he's well respected at the club, so I wouldn't get too.
I'm not saying now, Justin. I'm saying if this continues, he definitely will be.
Without a shadow of a doubt, because you've got to be getting results, and that's what you pay to do. But I think the thing that's costing Luton at the moment is just this, extreme naivety. It's a naivety we've not seen from a Luton team probably since they came into the Championship under under Graham Jones, I should say. That's when I think I last saw a team sort of defend so clumsily at times. I feel like they're lacking leaders on the pitch as well. It just doesn't feel like that Michael Frey or the first goal. When Michael Frey outmuscles, I think it's Amara Bell in the corner. It feels like it doesn't happen if there's a real leader at the back or on the pitch even, and that that sort of, you point that to recruitment as well. But look, you can praise as much as the club is well run, like I was saying with Sunderland, but unfortunately things on the pitch are just not going well. And that falls on Rob Edwards' shoulders. So you've got to take the rough with the smooth, and Rob Edwards, as you say, he has to fix it. Yeah. This
loss tops off a frustrating summer, it's got to be said, because not only has it been a far from ideal start to the season, it's been a pretty bad summer as far as the transfer window has gone, because we were saying they could do with at least 2 or 3 players in the final days of the window, and they only ended up signing a young lad from Sweden who's been sent back out on loan. And I can tell you now that won't have been all that Luton wanted to do. It also wouldn't have left Rob Edwards very happy either. So, look, don't get me wrong, I still think Luton's squad is still good enough for promotion, but they needed to do more business, and they'll be annoyed about how this summer has gone. We should give some praise to QPR though, Justin, because it was a great win. Their first of the season. The standout man for them was the Frey train, the Swiss shearer. Big Michael Frey up front. Scored the winner, also got a great assist as well. And he joined last January. Let's be honest, looked like a bit of a donkey last season. Not very good at all. But this season, he's got 3 goals for QPR, and he has been excellent, hasn't he?
He has been brilliant this season. I think I've seen a lot of QPR fans suggest he's going to be, he's entering cult hero status, and he's early on in his QPR, days at QPR. But I think if you've got a player who's got the strength, you're clearly, you come in January and there's probably a settling in period, and he's been thrust into action very quickly there as well. But he looks settled. He looks like he's bullying opposition, which is great. The club was quite happy to let Lyndon Dykes go, which surprised me at first. But when you see a performance like Michael Frey against Luton, you go, actually, they're in good hands here. But he's a player when QPR have got the quality in and around him, like Dembele, like Anderson, like Chair when he's fit, etc. Frey doesn't need to hit 10, 15 goals. He needs to get the best out of those. And I think if he's bullying opposition the way he did, the way he bullied and battled for his for the assist for QPR's equaliser, then he's going to get the best out of the players around him.
It says a lot that QPR signed Jancella in the summer, a striker from Lugano. It cost them £2 million, and he's barely had a look in because Frey has started the season so well, isn't it? Mm-hmm. He's got to be said, he looked so poor last season, so he just looks a completely different player to the one that we saw, and it's been great. He's an old-fashioned type striker, isn't he, Justin? A bit of a battering ram, which you'll be a fan of.
Oh, yeah.
But look, striker's been a big problem position for QPR for a number of years now, and he could be the answer in the short term anyway. And if he's becoming a cult hero in the process, then I'm all for it. Right, it's now time for us to check out how our second tier multiple with SBK got on, which included our game of the week, as well as Justin and I's 2 bankers from Friday's preview show. We had Blackburn double chance, we had Leeds to win, and then Justin's pick was Luton to win. Justin, what are you doing?
Come on, listen. Everything was going our way, and don't get me wrong. No, actually, no, I'm just going to point the finger at Rob Edwards. Let's just do it. Just point the finger at Rob Edwards.
So it's his fault for
it's his beautiful eyes. It's his fault.
Yeah, it's easy to get hypnotised by them, isn't it? I think we've done 4 trebles so far this season. 3 of them have been one-off now. So we've got an international break to stew over our progress so far. What a nightmare. But we'll be back with another multiple in the next preview show with SBK a week on Friday. And we're getting close, ladies and gents. Keep the faith. Have faith in the process. That's what we're saying. Let's have a quick break, Justin. After that, we'll talk about more games from across the Championship this past weekend. Welcome back to the Second Tier podcast. We're going through all the action from the weekend in the Championship, and we're now going to head over to South Wales because Cardiff lost 2-0 at home to Middlesbrough. 3-word reviews here from Borough fans. Steptoe says $1 million Morris. Ironic, really, Justin, that Middlesbrough, who have created so many chances in their last 2 games and failed to win, come up to this one, didn't create a massive amount, and won 2-0. Typical, isn't it?
Yeah, it is typical. It's quite ironic because it's probably one of Cardiff's better performances as well, and he still lost it. But I think more so on Borough. Yeah, it's bizarre how it works because they've. I mean, you go back to the Derby game, the amount of chances they created without really sort of penetrating Derby, and similarly with other defeats, they've been crying out for a game where the ends justifies the means, and almost the means didn't really. Well, yeah, it wasn't quite as fluid as it has been. And obviously, they had a bit of disruption with the Emmanuel Latte-Laf potential transfer saga to Ipswich as well, but seemed to just sort of diminish that and put Cardiff to the sword when they needed to, because they really did. As you say, didn't create too many chances. Wasn't a spectacular game. It wasn't even Borough at their best. Probably wasn't even one of Borough's best performances this season, despite 2 defeats. And they come away with 3 points. It's just how the Championship works sometimes.
Yeah. That's such a Championship thing, isn't it? It really is. But poor Michael Carrick would have lost his mind if he had got 2 points from the last 3 games. So he needed this, put it that way. And you're right, Middlesbrough weren't at their best, but Cardiff didn't offer much at all either. So they had to make the most of this and get the 3 points. Otherwise, the lack of putting games to bed may have become a real concern for Middlesbrough. Matt Clark got one of Borough's goals. He's actually Middlesbrough's top goal scorer heading into this international break. And look, I think he's such a good player, Justin. I actually think he's probably the most underrated defender in the league. I'd actually say he's top 5 centre-backs for me. What do you think?
I like him a lot. In fact, his header in this game reminded me of that. That video on social media that does the rounds of that woman headbutting the bus stop.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that in that. But more on your point about him being a very underrated player. I completely agree. Obviously, I got to watch him for 2 years at Derby when I was on loan, and he was fantastic. He's so composed on the ball, surprisingly so, because he's such a big defender, and he's very dominant in the air as well. He's got a complete package. Maybe a little bit slow, but look, it's not really an issue for me. He's a quality ball player, and I think just that him having the injury for a lot of this season before last and last season probably not makes you forget about him, but it puts him to the back of your mind. But when he's in form, we're seeing him. He plays well. He's great. He's got the entire package for me. But it's just about getting more games under his belt. That's what it is.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. That spell where he was out for over a year, I think it made him drop off people's radars a bit. But since coming back in at Middlesbrough, he has been top class. And you're right, he might be a bit slow, but his reading of the game is top notch. And look, he might not be John Stones when you give him the ball either, but he's totally serviceable and composed to a degree. But when it comes to the actual defending, he's one of the best in the league, without a doubt. And if he's scoring goals now as well, just like the header, which is similar to the lady headbutting that bus stop advertising board, then happy days. It's great stuff, and I'm looking forward to seeing him play more of a starring role for Borough as the season goes on. Not so happy days for Cardiff City, though, Justin. They're rooted to the bottom of the table with just 1 point to their name. They've now suffered their worst start to a season in 35 years. And I've got to say, it's been a bit worrying watching these first 4 games for Cardiff, Justin. It's
been really worrying. I think there's a lot you can really critique. I think firstly, it looks like a team that's caught in styles, doesn't really have an identity for me. I do like Errol Bullett as a guy. I think he's honest, maybe too honest. I mean, him suggesting Ole Tanner needs to lose weight was probably a little bit too sort of to the point. He said that earlier on this week.
Doesn't need to be said in public, does it?
No, it doesn't. It seemed a bit harsh, but he said he said it's nothing he's not said to the individual himself. But that's absolutely fine. But as you say, you don't really need to say it in public. But I think, as I say, so far the transition to a possession-based team just hasn't really worked. And in addition to that, whether these players are fit or not, benching Ruben Colwell and Callum Robson after they literally changed the game in the South Wales Derby last weekend and mentioning them for this one was just such a catastrophic error for me. You have to be playing them. You have to be playing them, especially if the coming off the back of a very positive performance last weekend. So, yeah, there's just a lot of I'm now becoming unsure of what Bullock can do with this team because of, firstly, selection problems, as he's alluding to, maybe being a little bit too honest sometimes, and also this lack of identity that Cardiff now seemingly have.
Yeah, you're right. When the Swansea game, they were just so poor up until the subs. Why would you name the same starting 11 against Middlesbrough? It's balmy. It's absolutely balmy. And the big concern for me is that they have been easily second best in every game so far this season, including in the South Wales derby, by the way, where they managed to snatch their only point of the season, but they didn't deserve it, it's got to be said. And that goal in the South Wales derby also happens to be their only goal so far, and the attack continues to be a big, big problem. I mean, it was a big problem last season, but they got away with it, usually by scoring a set piece out of nowhere. This season, they have been so poor. Unsurprisingly, their XG is one of the lowest in the league. And look, Errol Bullock's getting a lot of stick from fans. I mean, I've seen loads of people saying his football is too negative. His football was negative last season, but no one seemed to care then because it was getting results. So, it's a classic case of no one cares about the style as long as it's getting results. But as soon as things turn, that's when people start complaining. And the team selection's weird. I mean, for me, the jury's always been out with Errol Bullock, even though Cardiff did surpass expectations last season. I've always had a big question mark over his head. And now I think we're starting to see kind of the problems from last season really become a big, big issue for Cardiff, Justin. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, those problems have never sort of gone away, have they? They've always been problematic in terms of their chance creation. That's quite frustrating because they're a side who shouldn't be, with the players that they've got now, they should be creating more chances. I thought they had one of the better transfer windows. Alex Robertson was a good signing, for example. Darlin at centre half looks like a good all round package, maybe similar to Matt Clark, as we were just speaking about. And then you've got talents like Ruben Colwell and Callum Robinson who seemingly can't get into the starting 11 for whatever reason. So, this is a team that should be creating more chances, and that's where that lies the problem for Cardiff. They do not create enough chances. They cannot be a better team in a game if they do not create chances, and that's why they're looking second best at the moment. So unless that is remedied very quickly, they're going to struggle to score goals and keep conceding them because they've also got the worst defensive record in the division as well.
Leeds have won back-to-back games. It's after a 2-0 victory against Hull. 3-word reviews here from Leeds fans. Rich on our Patreon says, auto strategy justified. Theo says, what a start. Lamnam says, Solomon class act. For Hull, Simeon on our Patreon says, get Rosinia back. Chris says, crap. He went on to add that Hull didn't deserve 2 more words. Yeah, eventually ended up being a pretty comfortable game for Leeds. The first half wasn't great, but they eventually just kind of shifted Hull aside. Matteo Joseph scored his first league goal of the season. Manor Solomon made his Leeds debut. Very promising start as well. New signing Ayo Tanaka. He turns out to be a big fan favourite, even though he's only been at Leeds for literally 48 hours. And Willian Onto's signed a new contract in the past couple of days as well. So it's all looking pretty good for Leeds all of a sudden, isn't it?
It was a pretty poor transfer window, probably up until the last week and a half, where things started to, sort of rise up, with signings, and obviously Willian Onto extending his contract. Great social media post announcing his extension. By the way, Willie extends, to quote the Leeds social media account. Great use of the euphemism there. But look, it's just, I think Leeds. It's very easy to get really down very quickly with Leeds, but also very easy to get up very quickly with Leeds as well. But they're in a great position. They've got a well-balanced, well-depthed squad. And I think the performances over the past couple of weeks have maybe gone on the radar because they're not blowing teams out of the water. They've been very professional, very, very professional. It just feels like a comfortable swagger about them that's happening at the moment. And I think you look at Matteo Joseph, who's now in form. His goal, by the way, was quality. It's a sign of a top striker when they can get in front of their marker like that and just nick ahead and get it into the, get the toe on it and get it into the near post. It's really good movement from him. And look, players coming into form. Place is happy again. Well, we have.
What were we
worrying about? Exactly.
You're right. A couple of weeks ago, everyone was fearing the worst for Leeds, weren't they? Particularly Leeds fans, because, losing Ruta and then Somerville and Gray earlier in the window, it didn't seem like a whole lot was coming in. And now they're in a pretty good position. Obviously, they've been helped by no one really standing out too much. I mean, Luton have had a stinking start. Burnley, Coventry, Sheffield United haven't been amazing. It's meant it's opened the door for someone like Sunderland to step in. But then you'd say, if you're looking further down, of course, West Brom have had a pretty good start as well. But you'd say Leeds have a great chance to build now because that squad is just looking so good. And there will be challenges coming along the way. I still have question marks around Daniel Farke's in-game management and just general consistency. But overall, considering we were so worried about Leeds not long ago, they've come out the side looking very strong, which is remarkable, really, considering how things were 2 weeks ago.
Exactly. And again, it's testament to just everyone just keeping calm at Leeds. I imagine there was some frantic behaviour, upstairs in the recruitment team, and maybe everyone who signs off the checks. There's probably a little bit of scepticism, but at no point have I been sort of thinking about Daniel Farke. Okay, he looks stressed out. He looks stressed, even after the Portsmouth game, where it was a pretty dismal start for them. He came out. He's as positive as he can be, and he's been remarkably cool. And that's it. You just got to. I think anything associated with Leeds. This is why Bielsa was so good. You just got to be relaxed. You just got to be calm. That's it. Just.
Was Bielsa calm?
Not on the sideline, but I never got the feeling he was flapped by pressure, by external pressure.
Until
never
it
got
came
that
to
feeling.
Pronouncing Ipswich.
Yeah, he failed spectacularly there, but that's literally the only time. It's literally the only time you can critique him for. Because even his presentation exposing Derby's entire season was beautifully done. I was like, that was art. That was wonderful.
To be fair, I reckon I could do that. Frank Lampard tactics, just pass it to Harry Wilson all the time.
Literally, it didn't need to be a 2 hour. Didn't need to be a 2 hour seminar. Just had to be. This is what they do, and that's it.
Yeah.
But there we go.
Oh, that makes sense actually. Hull are a side we haven't mentioned much yet, Justin, aren't they? Mainly because their games have been quite boring. But the dust is finally starting to settle on a hectic summer for them. 15 first-team players have come in. 16 have left. What are you thinking with them currently? Still yet to win a game, it's got to be said.
What am I thinking with them? I wish I could give you a really good answer. I can't. Mainly because the recruitment is, say, 15 in, 16 out. They changed their entire squad. Liam Rossini's left. Tim Volter's come in. We've not seen Tim Volter be able to really do anything because his squad's been ever changing. So I think until sort of after maybe the next international break, that's where we can really start to assess Hull, because the ingredients we've got so far it's not really left Tim Volter with anything we can really critique him on. I think the start has been boring, it's been bland, but it's been okay. It's not been terrible, and that's really all you can really take from Hull. It's so hard to assess them at the moment because of the amount of changes that have been going on, because Volter's not been able to do what he probably wants to do. So yeah, it's just a case of let's check back in a couple of weeks. It's probably not a response Hull fans want to hear, but what can you say about them right now?
Yeah, I wanted to wait until the transfer window ended before properly judging them, and I think they have made some good signings actually. Carl Rushworth is a great goalkeeper.
Bloody good signing.
Yeah, bloody good signing. And speaking of bloody good signings, I think Abu Kamara, Cody Drame, Charlie Hughes, all really exciting young players, and getting them on permanent deals is simply great business. The rest of them, the rest of the players they brought in, I'm either not too fussed about or simply just don't know enough about them because there's been a lot come in from abroad. But it's got to be said, instigating this much turnover in your squad is obviously a very bold strategy. So if you are going to do that, surely it would make sense to keep the same manager. And obviously they haven't done that. They got rid of Liam Mazzina. They replaced him with Tim Volter, who so far doesn't look like an upgrade on what they had. He has been working with what he has been dealt, a squad which has been full of turmoil, and he's waiting to see who's coming in. But I haven't been too impressed, I've got to be said. As you say, it has been a bit bland, hasn't it? Considering we were being told he'd be playing this attacking goals for fun football. So, yeah, the jury's very much out with him so far. It's got to be said, but I know Hull fans particularly aren't impressed from what they've seen so far. Let's go to the team who sits second in the table, Justin. It's West Brom. They beat Swansea 1-0 thanks to a Jason Malumbi goal. Good to see him smashing it into the back of the net instead of smashing opposition players in pre-season, isn't it? West Brom, he's got to be said, have absolutely dominated this game. Remarkable, really, that they only won by one goal.
I was going to say 1-0 does not do them any justice in this game. They were brilliant. I think as big a testament as you can give them is Luke Williams was pretty much bigging West Brom up in his post-match press conference. He said they were really good, controlled the game, and he dominated chances. That's stating the obvious, but he also admitted that they blew them out of the water, and they did. And, they were fantastic. As I say, 1-0 doesn't do them any justice. I thought the whole team was brilliant. Josh Madger again leading the line. It just feels like he's maturing into the player that everyone wanted him to become. And I think as long as he stays fit, he's going to score goals. He's going to create goals. He's going to be a nuisance. So, yeah, it's looking like a well-balanced West Brom team at the minute, sitting second, 10 points on the board. Really well played. Really well played. Also, point for you, Carlos Corberan's only lost 6 games at the Hawthorns since taking over.
That's ridiculous,
remarkable.
isn't it?
Remarkable,
Yeah.
that is.
That is ridiculous. And you know what else is ridiculous, Justin? This is a bit of a hot take from me, a scorching hot take. But considering this was so comfortable for West Brom, if you put these two sides side by side, I reckon I would genuinely take Swansea's team over it. But because of the Carlos Corberan factor, it just completely changes everything. And here we are with West Brom sat in the top 2 after 4 games. It's remarkable, isn't it? 3 wins, a draw, and that draw came against Leeds. It's just so promising, isn't it? And the crazy thing is, Carlos Corberan is once again doing this with an arguably weaker squad than last season for the second season running. Yeah. How does he do this?
How does he do it?
How does he do it? It's only 4 games in, so we shouldn't get too carried away. But whatever is thrown at Carlos Corberan, he just seems to take it. And we should have known better, Justin. When we were making our predictions, we had West Brom pretty high initially, didn't we? Then we got cold feet at the 11th hour because of this news about them potentially being punished for spending rules. But just doesn't seem to have fazed them. And Carlos Corberan is doing Carlos Corberan things once again.
What we need to remember is the worse you throw at West Brom, the better Corberan performs. So actually, if you want to get promoted, Baggies fans, you need bad things to happen to the football club. Because Corberan will excel. I'm sorry, but,
administration, and they win the Champions League, the World Cup and everything.
Exactly. Let's not get too ahead of ourselves or put any ideas into the new owner's head. But look, if you want success, bankrupt the club.
Let's not do that. West Brom also got to be said, re-signed 2 former players, Mikey Johnston, Mason Holgate, getting Johnston on a permanent as well. I think that could be an excellent bit of business. There's loads of reasons to be optimistic about West Brom this season because despite obvious issues at the club, just doesn't seem to affect them. And you've got to point all the fingers there really at Carlos Corberan for just being a ridiculously good manager. I won't say what I was going to say there. Wayne Rooney's still looking for his first win as manager of Wayne Rooney's Plymouth. They lost 1-0 at home to Stoke in the Stephen Schumacher derby. 3-word reviews here from Plymouth fans. Matt on our Patreon says, not enough quality. Sam says, luckless Rooney losers. Yeah, not going terrifically well for Wayne Rooney's Plymouth, is it?
Well, no, it isn't. I actually thought it was a marginally better performance from what we've seen over the past few weeks. I thought they created some decent openings. I thought they got their technical players in good areas. Morgan Whittaker staying is obviously a big, massive bonus for Plymouth. But at the end of the day, look, if they're still not creating more chances than their opposition. They're still on the losing, side, and they're still, as the fan described it, it's pretty luckless, hapless sometimes as well. I don't want to keep shitting on Rooney, but, told you so.
It's still very early days. I don't think we should get any told you so signs out just yet. So just keep them under your desk for now, Justin. But yeah, you're right. They've been so poor, and people may think we're being harsh just because it's Wayne Rooney, But the underlying data paints a pretty grim picture, particularly going forwards. By far the lowest expected goals in the league. This game against Stoke was actually the game where they've created the most, and the XG for this was 0.8 for Plymouth. And they did test Victor Johansson in the Stoke goal, but it was mostly from half chances. And that's pretty much all Plymouth have had so far this season. I don't really see what the plan is under Rooney. It seems to be either get the ball out to Morgan Whittaker and hope he smashes it in from 20 yards, or give it to Ibrahim Sissoko, who has looked a good player, to be fair, but just giving him the ball and expecting him to take on the whole team. It doesn't seem like there's a big plan. And the strange thing is, you had Rooney after this game saying the team needs to be more clinical. If they were missing loads of great chances, I'd agree, but they're not. they're creating nothing, Justin. So I don't think it is about being more clinical. It's about actually creating better chances.
I think it's in both boxes. If you look at the goal they conceded here from Meinhof, it's a goal that shouldn't really be conceded. Obviously, Meinhof gets a lot of space into the box and his shot comes off, and Grimshaw shouldn't be beating his near post. After an incredible performance in midweek in the League Cup, Grimshaw was brilliant and obviously was probably made the error for the goal. And this game was destined, I would say, for 0-0 up until that mistake. But look, as you say, you've got to be better than opposition. I don't think Plymouth have been better than opposition so far this season, and this was another example because I think Stoke, albeit margins very small, Stoke were ever so slightly the better side here. And I think the biggest thing we can say is we're big fans of Plymouth. You should have a lot of positive things about Plymouth. So it's nothing against Plymouth. It's just a general scepticism on what Rooney can bring out of this team. And unfortunately, we're not seeing it yet.
Yeah, I'm quite fearful of these first 4 games, I've got to say, because it's not done anything to kind of disparage the concerns that we had at the start of the season, is it? I'm also not sure karaoke sessions are helping Rooney either, it's got to be said. We posted a video. Singing? I don't know what he was singing actually, but we posted a video of him this week doing karaoke in Plymouth, and it's one of those things where if your team's winning and playing well, it's a great thing to see your manager hanging out with fans, just being a normal bloke on the town. You know what I mean? But when your team's not playing very well and you're doing karaoke in Plymouth, I don't think it's a great look.
I don't mind it either way. I don't mind it either way. I think it's good to create that relationship with the fans. I think it is, because I think as a lot of people have these connotations of Wayne Rooney being an untouchable elite footballer once, back in his day. But he's back. He's in a local bar somewhere playing. If
I could play devil's advocate though, maybe I don't want to get all talk sport about it, but surely you want to put in more time into trying to figure out how Plymouth can be better at football.
Everyone needs downtime, right? What do you do in your downtime, Ryan? What do you do to relax?
Play Mario Kart.
There you go. This is Wayne Rooney's Mario Kart. Karaoke is Wayne Rooney's Mario Kart.
Yeah,
give him a chance.
I'm not a professional manager who's being paid, I'm assuming, a lot of money to run a football club.
No, but you're a professional podcaster being paid menial amounts of money to talk absolute garbage online, and you do it really well.
Thank you.
Because you get your downtime. Wayne Rooney needs his downtime, and maybe this is the key to unlocking success at Plymouth.
Maybe. We'll see. But we'll see. If he does more karaoke, we'll have to do a correlation between the amount of karaoke sessions a week and Plymouth's results. And the final game we'll discuss is Derby 3, Bristol City 0. 3-word reviews here for Derby. JD says, Paul Warne in. Charlie is a Bristol City fan on our Patreon. He says, completely, utterly embarrassing. A bit of a surprise result, this one, Justin, it's got to be said.
Probably a standout result from the weekend. Probably one of the performances of the weekend as well. Mainly because of the turnaround in Derby's performance. They were fucking magnificent here. They really were. They played with a lot of purpose. I mean, aside from the first 20 minutes where Bristol City probably could have been 2-0 up if it wasn't for Zetterstrom in goal, Derby played with a lot of purpose, a lot of tempo. They didn't sit back after they went ahead. And it was really fresh. It was really, really good to see. And before I say anything else, that's the benchmark. That's what you have to repeat game by game, because they've been the most negative team in the league up until this performance from Bristol City. So there's your benchmark. Play like that most weeks, you will get results. You will turn teams over, because Bristol City looked like children against Derby's adults.
Yeah, and Bristol City have been very good this season. It's got to be said as well. And look, we may have got a fair bit of stick for saying that Derby have played some of the most negative football we've seen so far this season. Don't think we were wrong. So that's why this result just looks all the more surprising. But you're right, Derby were absolutely class here. I thought David Ozo in midfield was just phenomenal. Brilliant. He looks like a really, really good player. So yeah, fair play to Paul Warne. If they do this more often, great. Will they? We'll find out, won't we? As got to be said, Derby have won both of their home games this season, so I do wonder whether it will be a case of them getting the vast majority of their points at home, not many on their travels, but we'll see. And the only other point I've got to make is everyone will be very disappointed to hear Ryan Liambe wasn't amongst the goal scorers. We were saying the other day that he's fast approaching the championship record for most games played without ever scoring a goal. He was actually the only outfield player for Derby not to have a shot in this game. So it doesn't seem like he's getting any closer to breaking that duck.
We can dream.
But
we can dream.
We can dream, Justin. We can dream. Fingers crossed and all that. Justin, let's do the polls. This is the part of the show where we give the listeners 3 questions on Twitter because we want to get their thoughts on everything to do with the Championship. So the first question we asked was this: where will Sunderland finish this season? Top 2, top 6, outside the top 6?
I would just say top 6 because then it's quite open.
I think that's fair. That's
Yeah.
fair. I think top 6 is a very diplomatic way of looking at it right now without getting too carried away. But they have been by far the team I've been most impressed by so far this season. 56% of people said top 6, 30% said outside the top 6, 14% said top 2. Which newly promoted team will finish highest this season? Derby, Oxford or Portsmouth?
Oxford. I've
Oxford?
I've been really impressed with him, and Mark Harris is going to score 30 goals this season.
Mark Harris for the Ballon d'Or. I'll probably stick with Portsmouth. That you've got to remember they've had a ridiculously tough start to the season, haven't they? And come out of it pretty well so far. 45% of people said Oxford, 33% said Portsmouth, 22% said Derby. And what's the best Oasis song? Champagne Supernova, Don't Look Back in Anger, Live Forever, Wonderwall.
What's the best Blur song? No, I'm kidding.
That's a good idea. Let's bring up a rivalry from 30 years ago. I'm sure that's going to wind people up.
Yeah, it will, because fans live in the past. I'm joking. I can't remember the selections, but I'm going to say The Importance of Being Idle and not go with any of the selections you said.
It's a good song. It's a very good song. I just picked the 4 most commonly thought of Oasis songs. I would say Live Forever, personally. I think it's an absolute banger. Didn't get any tickets, though, Justin. You'll be very disappointed to hear.
Did I?
No, we didn't. 33% of people said Live Forever. 25% of people said Don't Look Back in Anger. 24% said Champagne Supernova. And 18% said Wonderwall. Patreon subscribers, don't go anywhere. We've got the extended edition of the weekend show coming up, which we like to call Zamora Time. We'll be talking about Watford's winning run coming to an end, Sheffield Wednesday's 3rd loss in a row, and Mark Harris winning the Ballon d'Or. If you're not a Patreon subscriber, sign up to get Zamora Time every single Sunday. Head over to patreon.com/second tier. Link is in the description of this episode. But we'll be back on Thursday, where we'll be doing a summer transfer window review, where we'll be picking out which teams had the best transfer window, who's had the worst, and which signings we think are the best. So we look forward to seeing you then for that. But this has been the Second Tier Podcast. I've been Ryan Dilks.
I've been Justin Peach.
And a big thank you for listening.